What would you like the power to do? Bank of America.
Data centers. They're in the news here, they're in the news nationally. So we want to have a conversation about the importance of data centers and frankly, what is a data center? So I thought I would ask my friend who builds them. And not just because his company builds them, but the ambassador has been a bell ringer about the challenges and the changes that this state needs to make around policy, around cultural cohesion, in order for us to participate and win in the 21st century global economy. So let's start with the basics, Ambassador. What is a data center?
Well, good afternoon. I'm very glad to be here. And a data center is the most fantastic economic development opportunity in the last 150 years. I want you to think about what happened 110 years ago about autos and how Michigan took advantage of that. That's how big data centers now. Now, what do? Data centers, they store massive amounts of digital information. They process it into useful application and insights for all of us, especially AI. They distribute the information globally, and the facilities never stop upgrading. Think of model change orders, but at a colossal rate. The advancement of chips is beyond Moore's law. And if we miss out on this, Michigan will remain a backwater state for a very, very long time.
Is it fair to make the analogy that data centers are really critical infrastructure, much like railroads were in the 1800s?
They are critical, as railroads are, our airplanes are today, the commercial airline networks. They parallel what autos have done for us as a nation, the interstate highway system, moving goods and services from all parts and portions of the United States. You can use the same logic of a data center. It just isn't the storage of the data itself. In fact, it is the processing of it, and then it is the movement of it, and then it is the adjacencies that come along. People say, well, there's only 75 people that work inside a data center. That's true. But what happens around the periphery within a 50-mile radius is absolutely enormous. And we have to remember here as the state that we have lost 50% of our manufacturing GDP since the 1970s. 170 plants have closed. 400,000 manufacturing jobs have left the state. So we have this incredible opportunity to capture that economic opportunity coming back.
So let's expand on this critical infrastructure analogy. Given your very global experience, what do you see as the economic development opportunity related to data centers, but not the data centers themselves, but what do they drive in terms of economic activity?
So let's divide that into two parts. Short term, each megawatt of data center commands a construction-related cost of somewhere between $6 and $8 million per megawatt. Now apply that to the Selene project. Does anybody know what a gigawatt is? It's 1,000 megawatts. And if you multiply 1,000 times 1.4 times, let's just choose a number, 6, the construction value of the Selene project is over $7 billion. It'll peak at well over 2,500 tradesmen. It'll take a good 2 years to build, and the economic activity just from that one data center is absolutely enormous. Secondly, on a shorter term basis, is what it does to property taxes. That site is 250 acres, small. The current property taxes today are somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000. When that facility is done, the property taxes will swell to $25 million. That's $25 million that Saline Township doesn't have today. It probably doubles or triples their total tax revenue. And it's for the life of me that I can't understand why Howell pushed that away. They will rue the day that they didn't let Google build that data center in their area, because all of the naysayers and the reasons why are lies, flat out lies. And what it does on the longer term basis, that tech companies locate within proximity to the data center. AI labs, startups, cloud providers, financial services need low latency. Whether it's a Merrill Lynch account or Comera account, the shorter the distance between the user and the data center itself is a very, very important item. Healthcare. There's a lot of research that's going on in healthcare. All our healthcare institutions in the state, plus all the research, will end up, if we don't have these data centers here, they'll end up importing their processing and their information flow from India and Ohio, who are, by the way, about 3 to 4 gigawatts ahead of us right now. Also, on a global basis, Northern Virginia, which is I would say the brainchild of all of this, in the sense that they recognized the advantage of this 10 years ago. 70% of all the global internet traffic goes through Northern Virginia. So we have this opportunity, and we can't allow a few naysayers, the NIMBYs, to destroy and to prevent Michigan from reaching its true potential in terms of economic activity. And I haven't even talked yet about what the changeover is going to be. Google told us on the AI Center that there could be as much as $50 billion over the next 25 to 30 years in terms of more investment in that center, not building a more center, but the changeover and the chip advancement and all of the technology that's here to forecome.
So data centers are a key economic development tool, but you chaired the governor's population commission. Many of us were on that under your leadership, and many of us are a little frustrated that more didn't happen. But can you make the connection between data centers and population growth?
Populations move to where the best jobs are. There's no doubt that technology pays much better than virtually any other job classification. In addition, technology is where our children and their children are going to migrate to. And if we don't have those kind of jobs here, we will not be able to even keep Michigan at 10 million, which is our current population. So this is another opportunity to keep, to attract, to train, to teach the next generation, have this talented pipeline for companies like Google and OpenAI and Meta to come to our state and to help us grow into the 21st century state that we should be.
Many business organizations, certainly Business Leaders for Michigan, ourselves, and others, are really urging a fresh look at how Michigan does economic development and developing a new strategy and a more consistent strategy over time. Does Michigan have the proper economic development tools to continue to attract more data centers?
Well, I would use this as evidence that we don't. States like Virginia and Ohio have been pursuing and actually building data centers for a decade now. Michigan has 0. So obviously we're doing something wrong. What is it? I believe that, unfortunately, and I have mentioned this over and over again, it's the same malady that we had on auto plants. We haven't had a new auto plant built here in 40 years. There's not a single transplant that has built an assembly facility in the state of Michigan. Why? And as Volkswagen told me in 2008, that there are 4 or 5 things that we just are in last place. There is no cooperation amongst the power centers. Labor and management argue. Politicians argue. We haven't solved the racial issue. Geographically, we're not aligned. And these companies look at stability, they look at forward thinking, and as a state, we just don't have it. We have this thing called the 180. Snyder did a whole bunch of things and looked good to business. Next administration comes in and it undoes half of them. So that kind of stability doesn't garner any momentum. So I think we need to do is we need to realize as a state that this data center opportunity that we have has to be a bipartisan approach. It's good for Democrats, it's good for Republicans, it's good for independents. And you mentioned the Growing Michigan Together Council. What most people don't realize is that the governor gave us carte blanche. We created a council made up of a widely diversified group of people, women, men, blacks, whites, Hispanics, other nationalities, business, labor, educators, people from the Lower Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, and I'm sure I've missed a couple of groups to round it out. And we voted 19-1 to adopt probably 50, 60 major recommendations. So when somebody tells me that there's no bipartisanship in the state of Michigan, I categorically reject that. Here we had all these people, and I said Republicans a third, Democrats a third, Independents a third, 6, 6, 6, and 1, and we passed this 19-1. Come on, we have it. What is it that the politicians don't see? They don't see the advantage of these data centers. They don't see the economic opportunity that they present. They don't see how they can help our tax base. They don't see the future for our children. What is it? And so that's why I say that, are we ready to compete globally for these data centers? I'm not sure right now. We do have 3 that are coming out of the ground, but that's only 3 megawatts. And in order to really compete, we need to cluster, and we need 16. 16 megawatts. 16 megawatts is 1,600, 16 gigawatts is 1,600 megawatts. 16,000 megawatts. Multiply that times 7 million, you have a construction activity of $160 billion. And if you want to know how much construction activity we put in the state right now, it's about $30 billion a year, and that includes homes and everything else. So I just can't stress enough. And some people say to me, well, this is just all so self-serving for Walbridge. No, it's not. We've been building these things for 10 years, and whether they get built in Mexico, Texas, Georgia, Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, which, by the way, are all the places that we're currently working, it doesn't make any difference to us. I would just like to see Michigan be returned to the kind of state that it was in terms of per capita income and opportunity for our children.
So when you think about economic development, here you have 2 Republicans, 2 business people sitting on the stage. I imagine a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, well, just, they're going to just advocate for lower taxes and that'll be our economic development plan. True or false?
Would you repeat that? I'm not quite, I understood the question.
Yeah, so we're both Republicans, we're both business people, and I assume that most people assume that we would just be advocating in terms of an economic development strategy that we just have lower taxes. I'm asking you if you think that's accurate.
Lower taxes are not the driver today of businesses relocating their capital investments. The formula is so much more complicated than that. Do they want lower taxes? Yes. But that isn't the first, second, third, fourth, fifth decision. They may come in at the very end, but you have to have a culture of work ethic, a culture of talent progression, a culture of an ecosystem that supports all businesses. So no, low taxes are not the driver. And by the way, data centers aren't looking for lower taxes. In fact, if you heard what I said in my opening comments, data centers are going to bring massively more taxes, massively more. If 1 gigawatt can produce $25 million a year in additional taxes out of the chute. Multiply that times 10. That's $250 million a year. Multiply that by 20. It's $500 million a year. What will it do? It may, in fact, lower taxes for everybody else. These municipalities may not be able to spend the money fast enough. And not every municipality will get one. There will be a limited number of them.
So when you listen to the people who are actively opposing data centers in Michigan, they seem to argue that the data centers will suck up all of our water, increase our power bills, and create all sorts of negative consequences. What's fact and fiction there in terms of what some of these folks are claiming?
It's a lie. They might be referring to some data centers that were built 10 years ago before everybody got smart about what was happening. But today, Michigan last November passed a series of legislation that prevents the transfer of infrastructure improvement or rate increases from being foisted on the public at large, whether it be residential or commercial or industrial at all. The data centers have to pay more than their fair share. And Google and Microsoft and others have already come out and said, we do not want to have the electric generation built off the back of the normal citizen. They've made that a public policy of their companies. So where are they getting this information? It, in fact, because we're going to broaden the system, improve the grid, have much more generating capacity, has the potential of lowering the rates for the average electrical customer. And I'd love to see Dana Nessel come up here and debate me. She had every opportunity to review the power contract unredacted, and she chose not to do it because she wanted to fearmonger. So
we talked a little bit about this, and I don't want to be repetitive, but there's the construction phase, and you described.
No, wait, we didn't talk about water.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about water.
Okay, let's talk about water. These facilities have closed-loop systems today, which means there's a little bit of evaporation that goes off every day. These facilities, these data centers, use a fraction of the water that a normal golf course uses. That's my first argument. My second argument is we have been arguing for 10 years about we're the water wonderland. And if global warming comes and if all this stuff happens, that Michigan is so well positioned because we have all this fresh water. Now all of a sudden we don't want to use it for the highest and the best economic development that money can buy. Doesn't that say enough right there?
So what's the role for the education system in Michigan, either K through 12 or higher ed, and how do they relate to the building and execution of data centers?
I had mentioned earlier that the adjacencies that come along to the data center are enormous. K through 12 education will be able to partner in a way that begins to teach our kids that these new jobs, technicians, cybersecurity experts, service and technical personnel that goes in, more construction. There are a shortage of 500,000 electricians in the country today. These electricians working on the data centers can easily make $150,000 a year. This is the potential that is here for Michigan. It's just not electricians, it's pipe fitters and plumbers, steel workers. The opportunity to teach, to train is enormous.
So we talked about what the opposition is saying, but how are stakeholders in general reacting?
So I think that the stakeholders are doing an admirable job given the fact that we haven't engaged the public the way we should. And I think a little bit of that falls on the industry itself. We've been very nervous because of Michigan's negative connotations and negative approach to almost any kind of development. But if you look at the stakeholders, let's start with the utilities. Detroit Edison and Consumers Power both have excess capacity today. I know for sure that Detroit Edison is selling their excess capacity into the interchange, MISO it's called, and it would be much better if we weren't selling that power at wholesale and selling it at retail here in Michigan. That would help lower the rates, provide Detroit Edison with more capital. Detroit Edison's been very progressive in negotiating contracts. In fact, the contracts say themselves that they will not pass any rate increases onto the public. So this is just a plain old fallacy. They are also preparing to vastly increase their power generating capacity if more data centers can come here. So I give them an A+. The construction industry, we've jumped through hoops. And this is an enormous opportunity to start teaching our children tradesmen's jobs, skilled trades that, and quite frankly, are far more valuable than many of the college degrees that they're getting today. Let's look at the city councils. Yes, they're somewhat reluctant to engage, but once they hear about what these taxes will do, and that these boogeymen that they talk about, electric rate increases and water usage, they generally come to the table and sign up. When you look at Lansing, quietly Lansing is in favor of it. But publicly, they're somewhat reluctant. Now, I'll give the governor a lot of credit. She openly advocated for the Open AI Center in Saline, Michigan. We need to bring all of government together. The chamber, BLM, the teachers union. We all have to form a strong coalition that can go to Lansing and demand that our politicians create the policies and the initiatives and the momentum to want all the data centers, or at least 16 gigawatts worth, to come to Michigan so that we can have a bright future.
Closing comment from you. We've got 2 minutes left here. What's the choice that we face?
It's either adopt what's happening in the 21st century. I'm not going to debate whether AI is here to stay. I personally believe it does. Some of you may not think so, but it is infiltrating, and it is so progressive and so promising that it is going to continue to grow. The data center users today are out of capacity. They are building these things all over the country. There will only be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 gigawatts of data center capacity in our country, and then this thing will come to somewhat of a stop, just like assembly plants. There's this rush up to 40 assembly plants across America, and then it's sort of plateaued. We're either going to be part of it or we're not. And I'm here advocating that we are, and I'm hoping everybody in this audience gets the message today that the time for decision making is today, and we can't pass up this enormous opportunity. I have yet to hear a good, cogent, logical argument as why these things should have come. They don't pollute. They don't use diesel generators anymore. All the excess power is now being stored on batteries on site. They don't use as much water as a golf course. They're going to lower electric rates. They're shielded from public view by berms and wonderful landscaping. Just what is it about them that we don't want? I haven't heard a cogent argument. So my closing argument with 1 minute and 40 seconds left is, please go out, talk to your representative, talk to Lansing, talk to the associations that you belong to. We need to consolidate and start making Michigan the place to come.
Well, Ambassador John Rakolta, one of the reasons why I enjoy spending time with you is because you always know where you stand. You don't have to get over your shyness problem. So thank you for being blunt. I've known that about you for, gosh, the 20 years that I've known you. So well, Ambassador, and thank you for your public service.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Ambassador John Rakolta.